Welcome to another edition of the Hot Air Sports Podcast, and a big week for the Warriors. Another win and a couple of new people joining the staff. Nathan Brown is coming on board as coach, and Phil Gould, Gus, is going to join the board. What do you think of that one, Mahona?
Well, mate, a week is a hell of a long time in rugby league, a hell of a long time in sport, but even longer in rugby league. And last week, we were talking about who the hell are the Warriors going to get as coach, mate. We couldn't get anyone. It looked like we scoured the world rugby league fields and couldn't find anyone. No one wanted the job. And this week, news that we've got a new director and we've got a new coach. Let's start with the director, Gus Gould. Now, about at the beginning of this podcast, when we first started, before the season kicked off, Gus Gould was quite critical of the Warriors. 25 years of pure disappointment, he said. And I was a little bit offended, but at the same time, I listened to the truth of what he was saying, and he got most of it right, to be fair. We've underperformed on and off the field for too long, and for a number of reasons. I did mention another reason that I thought that he probably didn't talk about, which was the recruitment issue, especially across the Tasman, trying to get the best talent. So now he's going to get a chance to show what he's got. And for me, he's a man with a lot of rugby league knowledge. He's been in the game his whole life. He played the game. He's coached the game. He's built clubs from the ground up. When he went to Penrith, it was a dog's breakfast. When he left, yes, acrimonious circumstances, but he has built an amazing centre of excellence there, and some very, very talented youngsters coming through to play for the Panthers, and their recruitment is top notch as well. So I'm very, very happy that if he does the same sort of thing over here. They haven't been too detailed in exactly what he will be doing, but from my understanding is that he is going to be building a centre of excellence out at Mount Smart, trying to develop those younger players, and also just attract them to stay in New Zealand rather than go to Australia, where so many of them go. Now, the coach, maybe, I've heard a lot of bad publicity about the coach, Nathan Brown. He's a St. George Illawarra man. He played over 200 games for them. No, he doesn't have a great coaching record, but one thing that Nathan Brown does do, he develops a roster, and he did it at St. George. He did it at Newcastle. He's generally there for 2 or 3 years. And when he arrived at Newcastle, they didn't have anywhere near the talent that the Warriors have now. So I think he'll be able to basically he'll be able to drop in and, keep running, keep the club running at a reasonable level while he develops the talent. So I'm actually quite happy that he's a builder of talent with his roster, and give him 3 years and let's see what he can do. So I'm actually really, really happy that we've got two guys with good Australian experience. Will Gus Gould, I know you've got a question about will he attract the talent from Australia? Well, I think that we only need a couple of key parts. And I've said this many times before, if Gus can attract those sorts of talents in the right spots and we can supplement it with great Kiwi talent, we should be good, I don't care where the players come from, to be fair. They can come from Swahili for all I care. I just want them to be winning on the field, and that's what they're doing at the moment, mate. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I guess and this goes for any football code really, is having a good spine. And from a football sense, it's a good goalkeeper, a couple of good centre backs, a good central midfielder, and a good central striker. For rugby league, it's your hooker, your halves, and your fullback, and to a lesser extent the centres, that spine up the middle of the park. And I guess that's what possibly the Warriors have been lacking in recent years.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, basically, when you look at the spine of our team, a lot of those key positions, except for Roger, of course, and he's only come in the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of those key positions have been filled by Kiwi guys. And the Aussies we've had have been more journeymen than the top guys, So, yeah, when we had Stacey in the 7, we were sorted, weren't we? But see, that's what you hope to do when you build a roster. You can't go out and throw millions of dollars at 6 or 7 players every year. You've got to try and develop that young talent and build it with the older, more experienced guys. Because what if you see what happened with the Warriors? You think of Sean's Nickel Clockstadt. He came through. The Warriors knew he was coming through, but they wanted to get someone in the fullback position straight away to do the damage. They bought him. Nickel Cockstack developed. He's a first grade player, doesn't have anywhere to play, has to go over to Canberra, becomes a star over there. We've bought in a piece. So really what it's about is those building block pieces, getting the right players in there, and then complementing them with good local talent. And I think that's what they'll do. And the spine of our team, it could be, I mean, look, Roger's there. We need a better hooker. We've got an Australian journeyman doing those jobs. But for me, the two key positions that the Warriors need strengthening are prop. We need a big prop, a Salta Solomona or someone like that who's just a big beast who's going to scare guys and just do 100+ meters every week. And we need a good centre, a really, really quality centre. And other than that, I think we're okay. On the field, mate, on the field, the Warriors, 2 in a row.
Two in a row. Who'd have thunk?
Back to back is the baddest fact for the Warriors, mate. We beat the Manly Sea Eagles 26-22, and I was very happy. I mean, look, the Warriors have been through some. We talked about the pain that they've been through this year, losing Stephen Kearney, Blake Green. I thought Chanel Harris-Tavita came in and looks like he has got the potential to be our number 7 for a decade. We've kept Blake Green there because he's got the experience and all that, but he just slows down the game for me. His kicking game wasn't accurate enough, and Chanel in the first 10-15 minutes just tore them to pieces. He was a revelation, mate. It was just absolutely fantastic. Todd Payton said that he was the future of the club, so obviously he's sort of pulling in that direction as well. He thinks that he is going to be the future number 7 for the club for a long time. And all I can say is it's just fun to be a Warriors fan again, mate. Well, it is until maybe 8 o'clock on Friday night, because that's when we kick off against the top of the table Penrith Panthers. So
yeah, they're absolutely flying at the moment, aren't they, with Nathan Cleary running the cutter?
Mate, they are killing it. Nathan Cleary is playing better than I've ever seen him play. He just gets better and better every week. Results from the NRL round 13. Dragons 16, lost to the Roosters 24. Manly Sea Eagles on Friday, as we've discussed, lost to the Warriors 26. The Rabbits 28 beat the Broncos 10. Storm 41 beat the Bulldogs 10. Knights 44 beat the West Tigers 4. Panthers beat the Raiders. The Titans beat the Cowboys. Titans going well at the moment. And the Sharks and the Eels. One other thing though that I didn't tell you about though, mate, is what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the NRL letter. No, what was I going to say here, mate? I've completely lost my train of thought.
Spit it out, boy.
I'm just getting all excited about the Warriors playing 8 p.m. It's 8 p.m. The Penrith Panthers, top of the table, as you say. Nathan Cleary and his dad doing things for the Penrith Panthers that they haven't seen in generations. And one thing I did see on the weekend was them enjoying a beer in the game in the dressing room after the game with his dad, Nathan and Ivan, having a beer after the game. So that was really nice to see. No Gatorades in the thing. Have a nice beer. Just relax after the game.
Right.
So I thought that was quite good to see.
Yes, well, the beers would have been flowing in Christchurch last night after the Crusaders.
No. Can we stay on the Warriors?
No, had enough of that. Time to talk about a winning team. The mighty Crusaders winning Super Rugby, Aotearoa with a week to spare. And boy, for about an hour of that game yesterday against the Highlanders, I was getting a bit worried that it was going to come down to a showdown between the Blues and Crusaders next week. But the boys kicked into action with 20 minutes to go, and a couple of tries to George Bridge and another one to Braden Enner saw off a spirited Highlanders challenge for the first hour of that game. Everything was going right for the passes were going to hand. The turnovers and the rucks and the lineouts were going very well, and I was a very nervous Crusaders supporter at the 60-minute mark, but boy, did they kick on in that last 20 minutes and take the game, and Cody Taylor collected the trophy at the end of that game, so I don't think he's even going to bother taking it up to Auckland next week. So for the Blues game, it's already locked away in the Crusaders cabinet next to the last 3 Super Rugby trophies, so a big win for the Crusaders. And the poor old Chiefs finished 0-8 for the season, a desperately poor season for a team that were predicted at the beginning of this competition to run the Crusaders close. So very dispiriting season for the Chiefs, and Sam Cane unceremoniously bumped out of the game by Geordie Barrett's hip. An absolute accident, no intent whatsoever, and the Chiefs succumbing to the Hurricanes at Sky Stadium, 31-18, final score there. And Hurricanes, after that game, they were still in with an extremely slim chance of taking the trophy next week, but that's obviously been extinguished now. Crusaders on 18 points. No, that's the
28 points now.
28 points, 6 points ahead of the Blues. The Hurricanes on 21, and the Highlanders and Chiefs rounding out the 5 on 10 points and 5 points respectively. Across the Tasman, the Brumbies dealt a blow in their chances of winning Super Rugby Australia. They were thumped by the Rebels, 30 points to 12. A big upset there, and another upset in the other game. The Waratahs got up and thrashed the Reds 45 to 12. So the two favourites for that Super Rugby Australia competition absolutely thumped. And so the Brumbies only have a narrow lead now over the Rebels, who are just 4 points behind, followed by the Waratahs and the Reds are both on 11. They've all played 5 games, and Western Force still yet to get off the mark with a win. They've only got a couple of bonus points at the bottom of that table. So that competition could go right down to the wire. They've just passed the halfway stage on that, so they've got another 3 weeks to go, or 3 rounds to go in that competition. So it could be an interesting finish. On a more local note, in the Moose Carpenny Cup for the Wairarapa Bush Premier Rugby competition, the mighty Greytown team lead the way from Marist at the top of the table, and Greytown won the big local derby against Carterton over the weekend, 16 points to 0, only led 3-0 at half-time, and by all accounts it was an absolute barnstormer of a game. Greytown coming out on top, and as I said, they sit on top of the table, top equal actually with Marist. They are equal on points for and against, and then you've got Ekatahuna, Carterton and East Coast on 17, Martinborough on 15, Gladstone on 13, and poor old Pioneer are on 1 point. So just 7 points separating 1 to 7 in an 8-team competition. So hopefully the mighty Greytown will be able to get up and win that one. So we've just got to wait and see how that one goes. So there's rugby covered on both a national and a local front.
There are a couple of games to go in the Super Rugby. I mean, you did sort of just brief over that. Oh, but on to Australia. There is 1 round to go next week, and the Crusaders, the Crusaders, who have had everything go for them this season, penalties and refereeing decisions and all sorts of things. They knock-ons. Yeah, absolutely. Forward passes. Everything's gone right for them this year. Well, they're not going to have it their way. They've got to come up north, don't they, this weekend?
They do.
Saturday, massive game at Eden Park, at the Garden of Eden. They take on the Blues, and the Blues can give them a nice knick-knack paddywhack and send them home with their tails between their legs. They can take their trophy. We'll get it next year. And, of course, the Hurricanes playing the Highlanders, and the Chiefs licking their wounds in the Waikato. The poor old Chiefs, Poor old Chiefs. 8 in a row. 8 losses in a row. The one thing I did remember what I was going to say as well when I was floundering around there about the Warriors. Speaking of teams that everything has gone for, the Warriors, nothing went right for them except for the score on Friday night when we played Manly. Listen to this, mate. 4 set restarts to 7. We had all 4 of our set restarts in the first 5 minutes of the game as well. None for the rest of the game. 3 penalties to 6, and most of those penalties were in the first half as well. 2 sin binnings, so we played 20 minutes of the match with only 12 players, and 6 less sets in total. It was a gutsy performance, and that was what I was sort of playing around for. And that's what I love about my rugby league team, is when they're playing gutsy, when they hang in there. And for too long now, the Warriors haven't done that, and that's what I'm seeing. So, yeah, there you go. That's what I was floundering around for. I hope it was worth it.
Quite right. Interesting thing during the week, going back to rugby, was the story that came out during the week that Warren Gatlin's trying to bring over some English and Scottish players next
I'm all for
season. for the Chiefs. So it'll be interesting to
Yep.
see what happens there. He wants to give them a bit of game time, a bit of solid game time leading up to the Lions tour, of course. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, and if the rugby union here allows that to happen. They're very territorial when it comes to things like that, and so we've just got to wait and see if Mr. Gatlin gets his way. He certainly didn't have his way in this year's tournament. Anyway, moving on to the round ball.
Hang on, mate. That's if the Lions talk does go ahead. But I would be all for that as well, mate. I think it's well overdue. Why don't you just say a couple of imports from overseas? It'll just make the competition. I mean, you've seen what it does in the NRL when they bring over a couple of pommy guys. It just adds something to the competition, just a bit more excitement. I think it's great. So, no, I'd be all for that.
Quite right. On to the round ball game. We saw the last of the Champions League last 16 matches over the weekend. Manchester City took advantage of two horrendous mistakes by Rafael Varane to win 2-1. And Juventus, even though they beat Lyon 2-1, have gone out on the away goals rule. So Cristiano Ronaldo will take no further part in the Champions League. And the following day, Juventus sacked their coach, Maurizio Sarri, and replaced him with Italian legend Andrea Pirlo, who now is going to be coaching a side with a player that's actually older than him, with Gigi Buffon still in goal for Juventus. And so the ageless goalkeeper, who's now into his 40s, is going to be older than his own coach.
That's pretty crazy, eh, mate? That's pretty crazy. You win the league and then you get sacked. So, exactly. That's what happens in Juventus.
Just goes to show what importance they place on the Champions League. Bayern Munich dispatched Chelsea fairly easily, 4-1, with a 7-1 aggregate. So Frank Lampard will be licking wounds.
Good to see Chelsea have shored up their defence for next year. All those defenders they're signing, mate. Yeah, that'll make a real difference next year. They might lose maybe 9-3 next year. Who knows?
Absolutely. And Leo Messi scored an absolutely freakish goal against Napoli on their way to a 3-1 victory and a 4-2 aggregate win. Some interesting games in the quarterfinals. Atalanta against Paris Saint-Germain. You'd have to favour PSG in that one. Leipzig and Atletico Madrid.
These are one-off games, aren't they, Macca?
They are one-off games, and
very interesting.
All in Portugal now for the rest of the tournament. Leipzig and Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid obviously put Liverpool out in the last round, so you'd favour them to win that tie. The next one is going to be an absolute barnstormer at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning New Zealand time. Barcelona against Bayern Munich. That is going to be well worth watching, that one. Give up a couple of hours of your time, get up early and watch that game. And then Sunday morning sees Manchester City play Lyon. And they've already done the draw for the semi-finals. So we're facing the likelihood of Barcelona or Bayern Munich up against Manchester City or Lyon. So City have got a hard road to get through to the final. And, of course, the other one will be between either Atalanta or PSG against Leipzig or Atletico Madrid. So it's interesting times ahead. And, yes, as you say, everything from now on is being held on neutral territory. So it will be interesting to see what happens and who gets to the final.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Pick me finalists and pick me a winner.
It's going to be Barcelona against PSG, and I'm going to say that Barcelona are going to win that.
That long to come out with that, did you? Okay. I'm going to go the other way. I reckon it'll be Bayern Munich versus Atalanta. There you go.
Bayern Munich, Atalanta. Very interesting.
Bayern Munich.
I had to think long and hard over that. I had to think long and hard over that Barcelona-Bayern Munich game, because being a bit of a Bayern Munich fan, I obviously would quite like to see them through, but I just think Barcelona in the form they showed yesterday are just going to be too strong, I think, at the end of the day.
I don't think so, mate. I think Barcelona, I mean, they've got Leo Messi, of course, and he can do anything and he can beat any team by himself. But Bayern Munich, they are just the ultimate team, mate. I mean, they're just strong everywhere, and they just seem so well drilled. I'm backing them to go all the way. They'll win the whole thing. And at Atlanta, for me, I've watched their watched a few of their Serie A games. They just score so many goals. They're just the most exciting team to watch. They're averaging close to 3 goals a game. Amazing attacking talent. It's going to be great to see them play Paris Saint-Germain. I'm really looking forward to that. I reckon that could be 5-4 or something. But I just reckon it could be an outsider this year. It just could be an outsider. On one game, it's not 2-legged ties. I think that favours the smaller teams. So. Yeah,
yes, well, Atalanta are playing a bit like the old Newcastle side of the 90s. We don't mind conceding 3 because we can score 4 or 5.
That's right. It's just crazy. It's just red arrow stuff. And also, just a little bit of transfer talk based down around our lovely Liverpool, mate. Our beautiful Liverpool, the greatest team in the world, the world, European, and British champions. Looks like we've signed a backup left back. Earlier in the week, it was mentioned that we were going to go for the left back from Norwich, Lewis, weren't we? But we got turned down. Yeah, we got turned down. £10 million deal turned down for him. Looks like we're closing in on Konstantinos Tsimikas. His name is. He's Greek. He plays for Olympiacos. I saw him in the weekend in the Europa League, and he was very, very handy. Very quick, really good cross, good in defence as well. Can play in his back 3, a back 4. He'll be great backup, but I don't think he's coming to play backup, mate. He's really handy. And this is once again an example of the way Klopp does his business. He goes out, he picks and chooses specific players for specific roles. We're not going out there and buying the left back Marcelo for 70 million. We're buying a player for 10 to 15 million. We'll develop him at our rate, develop our, around our team, the way our team plays. And I just think that's just the best way to approach a transfer policy. I love it.
The saga goes on with Thiago Alcantara and hopefully signing him. I'm wondering if it's being held up because of Bayern Munich's continued progress in the Champions League, and maybe something will happen at the stage whenever Bayern Munich get knocked out. Maybe something might happen then. Keep that focus on what he's doing.
Well, he actually played in the week, didn't he, Alcantara? Because
he did.
They've got Pavard, their right back, is injured, so they moved their captain. What's his name? What's the captain's name? They moved him to right back.
Yes.
Kimmich. They moved Kimmich to right back, and they brought Thiago into the midfield. God, they've got so much depth, don't they? Yeah. They're an incredible side. They may keep him in the side because he's definitely one of the better players in midfield for them. And if Kimmich has to play right back, he's definitely handy to have in the midfield, isn't he? So I'm hoping as well that he's coming to Liverpool.
Absolutely.
He's looking very good. Yeah.
And I know that the owners or the top brass at Liverpool have come out and told Klopp he's got to sell before he can buy. You're getting some big contracts off the books with Adam Lallana's going, Nathaniel Klein has finished there now, and of course Dejan Lovren has gone to Zenit St. Petersburg now. And ironically, in his first game for the club, won a trophy. So a good start at Zenit for Dejan Lovren. So yes, they have got some big money off the books with those 3, and I think they'll be looking to possibly sell some of the fringe players, maybe Marco Grujic, who did have a good loan spell at Hertha Berlin.
I've heard different. I've heard we may be keeping him and Harry Wilson unless we get offers, because of this whole pandemic situation, unless we get offers of over 20 mil or around that for both of them. Klopp's decided he'll keep them and they'll be squad players, which I'd be stoked for that, because I think both of those guys can play.
And you've got Rhian Brewster coming back from a magnificent spell at Swansea. He scored some cracking goals for them. So with a bit of luck. And there's a bit of talk around that Divock Origi might be up for sale. I saw that Leicester were sniffing around him. Of course, it was Brendan Rodgers that brought him to Liverpool back in 2014. So
I guess that would be all about price. What are you going to pay for him? If an offer came in for over 20 million for him, I suppose you'd take. But then, are we going to buy another? I mean, I suppose we've got Brewster, but he's also had injury problems. Are we going to buy another backup, a young guy?
Well, you've got Brewster and Harry Wilson that can both play up front as well. So you've got choices there. And there's one other kid in the academy too that is getting rave reviews up front. I can't remember his name now, so there's a possibility to bring him up as well. But moving on to the A-League, the results for the last round, of course, saw the Phoenix with a draw against the Brisbane Roar, 1-1. And Melbourne Victory had a loss and a win, losing 3-2 to Central Coast Mariners, the bottom side in the competition. Good win for them. Western Sydney Wanderers went down to the Perth Glory. Adelaide and Sydney had a draw. And then in the midweek games, Western United and Western Sydney Wanderers, a 8-goal thriller with Western United, the Melbourne-based side, coming out on top 5-3. And Perth Glory, who had been playing pretty well up till now, got absolutely thumped by Melbourne Victory, 4-0 over the weekend. So that leaves Sydney still on top by miles. They've already won the minor premiership. Melbourne City second on 43 with a game in hand over the Phoenix, who are third on 41. Then Brisbane Roar on 39, Perth Glory 37, and Adelaide on 35 round out the top 6. So the Phoenix guaranteed a finals place now with
that point guaranteed it. Yep.
They're coming up against the Newcastle Jets in a few days' time. Western United only 2 points away from that top 6, but they do have a couple of games in hand on Adelaide United. And as I mentioned, Central Coast Mariners sitting bottom, Melbourne Victory and Western Sydney Wanderers and Newcastle Jets rounding out the rest of the competition. So,
did you watch the Phoenix game? Did you watch the Phoenix game at all?
I've watched most of it. Yes, it was.
Yep. Yeah. So I just think it's good to see that the Australian officials are taking the same route they do with all our other sports teams over there, where they just basically just try and string us up every week, mate. That referee was just appalling.
Well, they get away with it now because there's no VAR in the rest of the A-League. So get away with all these interesting decisions, shall we say. But the Phoenix are doing a good job. They're playing decent football, and hopefully if they can stay injury-free, they could be a good bet to make that final if they can carry on playing that way. On the local front, Mount Albert Ponsonby had a big game on Friday night against Glenfield. It was first versus fifth. And the mighty Mount Albert came away with a 2-0 victory.
Oh, well done.
Keeping them on top of the table. So Big Owl and PC have got the boys humming at the moment. They've got a 4-point gap at the top over Metro and Waiheke on third. They're playing some good football. The boys from the island are on 15 points. And then you've got Albany United and Glenfield sitting on 13 with a game in hand.
Did you say Albany United?
That's the one.
Yeah, I live on the shore, mate. It's Albany, just to clarify.
Sorry.
Yeah, Albany. Yeah, we're not American. Albany. Come on, mate. Come on. You're better than that, mate. You're better than that. Birkenhead United, tough day at the office for them, mate. They had a 2-0 loss to Bay Olympic over the weekend. They now sit third on the men's premier behind Auckland and Central. Looking at that table, though, mate, what's happened to Waitakere, or Waitakere, as you may refer to them? They're way down the bottom, 3 points. They look set for relegation. I don't know what's going on there. And while we continue our local sport watch, the mighty Northcote Tigers beat the Te Atatu Roosters 24-12 at Jack Colvin Park on Saturday. They sit second equal in the Fox Memorial Championship. This is rugby league, of course, just behind Mount Albert on 15 points and level with the point share Pirates on 14 points. Northcote Tigers going real well.
Excellent. So, just a couple of other things that I have noticed during the week.
Go on.
Not good to see gymnastics in the news for the wrong reasons. I don't know what's going on there, but some allegations of bullying by coaches at the highest level, fat shaming and bullying, as I said, that's just not on for the kids that are, especially at the age that they are going through that program, and hopefully they can get that sorted out fairly quickly. And obviously there's Martin Devlin talked about over the weekend a wee bit about that and said that he has seen it too in boys football. So not good to see it at that local level of sports. So
Nah.
hopefully they can get that sorted out and fixed, because that sort of thing is just not on.
Yeah, I just don't understand it, mate. I really don't. I mean, I go and stand up on the sidelines for local sports, and I should just some of the abuse that some parents and some people do. I just think us as spectators or other parents, or if you're just watching the game, if you see something that's not acceptable, call it out. Don't just stand there. If you stand there and say nothing, you're basically agreeing with it, aren't you? You're going along with it. So don't be scared. I know, well, look, we all hate confrontation, but when there's kids involved, man, we don't have a choice. We're the adults in the situation. We have to stand up and protect the kids. So, no, man, completely not on. It's just wrong. I just don't understand. Look, I know that some people want to live vicariously through their kids, and they, but it's just, oh man, I don't get it, eh? Sport should be fun, especially for kids, eh? It should be fun first.
Yeah, and I mean, whether you're in a competitive competition or you're just there to have a good time, parents on the sideline, just pull your heads in and just support your kids. Don't abuse them, and don't have the silent treatment in the car on the way home. That's another one that just as bad as abuse on the sideline. So
it's not serious, That's the whole thing with the. I don't care. I don't believe in elitist sport with kids. I really don't. I think because I've seen too many kids at 12 who are absolute world beaters in a sport, and then by the time they're 20, they're completely done with that sport. So let's just forget about being the next Michael Jordan or whoever.
Exactly.
Just play for fun first, man. No, so I hope that gets sorted.
Quite right. Well, on a lighter note, let's go to the Wives Fives. It's the
final week.
The final week. And I mentioned last week that I was going to open up or put some money in the old TAB account and bet the opposite of what Michelle was picking. But unfortunately, Michelle's had not a bad week this week on the pick. The TAB account didn't go up by, actually it went down. So there you go.
Oh, no. See, the thing is, you should have gone on Sharice's picks this week, maybe. That's it.
Well, I should have gone on Michelle's picks.
She was terrible. No, well, I mean, you should have opposite of what Sharice picked.
Opposite, yeah.
So let's start with the Wellington Phoenix and the Brisbane Roar. Sharice chose the Phoenix. Who did Michelle choose?
Yeah, she chose the Phoenix as well. So do we give them a half point for a draw?
We'll give them a half a point. Before we started, Michelle was on 5 points. Sharice was on 10. So they both got an extra half a point there. Manchester City, Real Madrid. Who did Michelle have in that one?
Michelle went for Real Madrid in that one, so that was the only one that returned anything on the TAB.
Manchester City won that, didn't they?
They did, but she chose. So she chose Real Madrid. I bet on Man City, and Man City returned the
well done.
Return of $1.67 on the dollar.
Yeah, Sharice chose Real Madrid as well. I think they're just seduced by the name, to be fair. Didn't do too well there. Manly versus the Warriors.
Michelle picked the Warriors. She thought it was time that they got their act together. So, she picked them.
Give her a kiss from me. My wife, bloody useless. She chose Manly. Like I said to her, though, you can keep choosing all the opposition all the way through for the rest of the year. I don't care. You've got a 2 for 2 for me. So she's doing terribly. Crusaders versus the Highlanders. I've got a fair idea who Michelle picked in this one.
Yeah, Michelle picked the Crusaders. Went with hubby.
Sharice chose the Crusaders as well. And the Chiefs and the Hurricanes?
Michelle went against her home team this week and chose the Hurricanes, being the home team playing the game. So yes, she turned the cheek on her home province after their performances this season. So
Sharice was obviously feeling sympathetic because she chose the Chiefs. She thought they can't lose all the games. Sharice ended with 1.5 points. What did Michelle get this week? How many points is that?
What's that? That's
2.5. 3.5. So Sharice has ended with 11.5. Michelle 8.5. I think what this has served to show is that it's not as easy picking sports as what we obviously think it is. We're obviously, that's not. We won't ask them advice other than if we want to go against what they're saying. I think that's
exactly.
yeah.
Well, that's the Wives
All
Five
right.
done and dusted. Now it's time for the Greyfriars Motel Top 5. And this week we went for our favourite, or who we think are the top 5 bowlers in cricket, largely focusing on Test cricket, but also taking into account their figures in ODIs as well, if you wanted. So,
okay.
I've chosen a top 5 who are my favourites. Crossed with 2 or 3, probably 3 out of the 5, I think, really at the top of their game, and just a couple of others who I particularly liked watching over my years of watching cricket. So
I reckon there could be some crossover here. There could be some crossover.
I'm pretty sure there will be crossover with at least one in particular. So we'll.
So do you want to start?
I can start first, and my number 5 is a chap who only played 18 tests. So you might say, how could he be a top 5 bowler in the world if he's only played 18 tests? Well, Shane Edward Bond, who was born on the 7th of June 1975 in Christchurch, is one of my top 5 bowlers, because when he was fit, boy, was he good. 89 wickets in just 18 tests at 22.09. In the ODI 50 over game, 82 one-day internationals, 147 wickets at 20.88 with an economy rate of 4 for 28. And who can forget his performances against Australia? He was made his test debut in Hobart, November 2001, and his last test, he destroyed Pakistan in Dunedin in November 2009. But I've picked out a wee article that was on Cricinfo that really encapsulates the career of Shane Bond, and I'll just read it out for you. Fast, fearsome, and frustratingly fragile, Shane Bond will be remembered as much for his misfortune with injuries as for his wonderful ability. Bond was New Zealand's best pace bowler in the post-Hadley era, but missed more games than he played. The most serious was a back problem in 2003 that led to nearly 2 years out, and an operation in which his spine was fused with titanium wire. There were also various issues with knees, feet, and other body parts, but Bond's desire to play could never be questioned. Some of the trouble came from his unwillingness to reduce his intensity. Had he been happy to drop his pace and take things easier, he might have played more cricket. That he didn't take that path said much about his competitive nature. The game always lifted a notch when he had the ball. His athletic action was geared towards in-swing, and his 150-plus km/h efforts meant the ball would swing late. Toe-crushing Yorkers were a specialty, and he feasted on the world's best batsmen. Ricky Ponting fell to Bond in all of his first 6 one-day internationals they played against each other. Bond always played against Australia, and it was a sign of his great skill that he took 44 ODI wickets at just 15.79 against them. That included a hat-trick in Hobart in 2006.
I remember that.
And one of Bond's personal favourites, his 6 for 23 against the eventual champions in the 2003 World Cup. He helped New Zealand to a World Cup semi-final 4 years later before signing with the rebel ICL, which led to his being ostracised from international cricket for 2 years. He returned in late 2009 with enough fuel for one final match-winning performance in the Dunedin Test against Pakistan, but within a year had retired from all 4 forms of the game as his body told him enough was enough. Shane Bond, my number 5.
Yeah, just sad we didn't see more of him, eh? I just wish, our team, we had just about all the other pieces in place, and we just needed a fast bowler, and we had him, and we just didn't see him enough. He was a great bowler. He could have been so much more. Good call. My number 5, another fast bowler. I think we got lots of fast bowlers on our list, mate. We do love a fast bowler. Took 375 wickets at 20.94. It's really handy. Handy. Malcolm Denzel Marshall. I didn't know his middle name was Denzel, but I like him even more now. He was from Barbados. He was a fast bowler, and he was one of the finest pacemen to ever play Test cricket. Loved his action. He was very shoulder. The way he used to sprint to the wicket was just like an Olympic sprinter, but his action was all shoulder and quite front on action. And his test bowling average of 20.94 is the best of anyone who has taken more than 200 wickets. His bowling, he achieved his bowling success despite being, by the standards of many others, quite a short guy. He was only 5'10", which was very, very short for the average fast bowlers. Most of them were over 6 foot, especially in the West Indies, where people like Joel Garner and Curtly Ambrose and Courtney Walsh were all a lot taller than him. Yeah, and he was massively feared by all batsmen in Test cricket when he was playing, and he had a very, very dangerous bouncer because you couldn't see any extra effort, and he used to pitch it, and it just used to rear at you without any real sign that he was putting in any extra effort, and he used to rear at you from a length, so it didn't even have to be short. In 2009, he was inducted into the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame, and to mark 150 years, the Cricketer's Almanac Wisden named him in the all-time Test World 11. Unfortunately, he died prematurely on the 4th of November 1999 due to complications, an operation he was having. Very, very sad. Died way too soon. But Malcolm Marshall is my number 5. Loved Malcolm Marshall.
Yes, and you talk about his run-up. He came in from just about extra cover. He had quite a curvy run-up, real angled run-up. And I guess the ultimate honour was when the South African bowler Macca and Ian came on to the scene and basically replicated his run-up and bowling style. So it was like watching Malcolm Marshall playing for South Africa.
Yeah.
Incredible. And yes, as you mentioned, very sad that he passed away prematurely.
Very sad.
On to number 4. The only non-fast bowler in my top 5 took 708 wickets at 25.41 and 145 tests. Probably better known for his off-field antics than his on-field antics, and that is, of course, Shane Keith Warne, born in Moorabbin in Melbourne, Victoria, on the 13th of September 1969. Also had a fairly handy record at one-day level as well, 194 ODI wickets and 293 wickets in 194 games at 25.73. 1,319 first-class wickets across mainly 3 teams, Victoria, Hampshire and Australia. And we point to note, Hampshire was also the county that Malcolm Marshall played for in his... So, Shane Keith Warne, the bowl of the century to get Mike Gatting with his first ball in an Ashes test. Just unbelievable. And, of course, he picked up a test hat-trick as well against South Africa, I think it was, at his beloved MCG. So, Shane Keith Warne is my number 4. And, of course, as I mentioned, his off-field antics, was married to, is he still married to Liz Hurley? Not quite sure.
I don't know what's going on in his personal life, but I don't think he's with her anymore.
No, he's half the man that he used to be in his playing days, of course. Lost all the weight once he could take mum's diuretics, which he got banned for a year. He can now take them without fear of getting banned. So good old Shane. Good old Warnie.
Bit of weight from the middle, and he gained a bit of hair on top. Old Warnie, didn't he?
Advanced hair,
yeah. I've picked him as well, mate. I couldn't go past him. I mean, I didn't pick him as a human being, and my human being, he probably wouldn't make the top 5 billion. I reckon. The guy's an idiot. Don't like him at all. I quite like listening to him, which is quite weird because I quite like listening to him talk in the commentary, but I don't like him. But I quite like listening because he's so perceptive, you know. He knows the game and he's worth listening to about cricket. But I wouldn't listen to him talk about anything else.
No.
But yeah, Shane Keith Warne, what a I just couldn't go past him, mate. My top 5. I was thinking of other spinners. I got to put a spinner in there. I just had to go. I mean, every time Shane Warne was bowling, it was almost essential TV viewing. I think that's
absolutely.
That's about as much as you can say about the guy. Warnie's bowling. People came in. You know, people were outside playing in the thing. Warnie's bowling. People would come inside to watch Warnie bowl, especially in the time he was playing cricket. The game was dominated by fast bowlers. It was just dominated. Most teams played 4 fast bowlers. Most teams didn't even have an off spinner. People have forgotten what leg spin was, and he came along and just brought the art back to what it was, didn't he? He much like a knuckleballer in baseball. It's a real skill, and it's lovely to see someone bowling like that. I just had to have him on there, man. Had to have him on there. Love him as a cricketer. Shane Keith Warne, and he's got Keith as a middle name as well, so that has to be a good thing.
Well, the other thing about his career is that he kept another very, very good leg spinner in Stuart McGill on the sidelines. I mean, how Stuart McGill amassed over 200 Test wickets, I'll be always amazed, because he was playing at the same time as Warney. So another great leg spinner. Any other country in the world probably would have taken 500 or 600 Test wickets.
Absolutely. No, McGill was a great bowler. He actually had a very similar action to Shane Warne as well.
He did.
Very good bowler. And like you say, took over 200 Test wickets. How the hell did he do that? I think most of those were probably taken after Shane Warne retired or when he was on a suspension, probably.
Yeah.
So he's my number 3. He's your number 4. So let's go to my number 4, shall we?
Yes.
Yes, let's go to my number 4. My number 4, he took 414 wickets at 23.62. Fairly handy once more. I was looking for a left armour, mate, and as far as left armours go, the best of all time, I think the best of all time, the best I ever saw anyway, was known as the Sultan of Swing, Wasim Akram. And once again, very shoulder action from the angle, ran in on the angle as well. It was all in the action, wasn't it, when he reached the crease. Regarded as one of the greatest fast bowlers in the history of the game, perhaps the finest left-arm bowler of all, holds the record for the most wickets in A-list cricket. I didn't know this. 881 wickets in A-list cricket. That's phenomenal. And he's second in terms of one-day international wickets with 502, only behind Matthias Muratharan. He's considered to be one of the founders and perhaps the finest exponent of reverse swing bowling, and along with Wasim Akram and Waqar Younis, they were just fearful. I mean, they were just frightening, weren't they? The two of them, and of course the bottle cap test where they had the bottle caps and they knew exactly how to make that ball swing. But yeah, what an absolute champion. He wasn't a bad batter either. 30th of September 2009, he was one of the new members also inducted into the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame. What a bowler he was, Wasim Akram. He's my number 4.
Oh, absolutely. And his performance in the 1992 Cricket World Cup final against England, where he just cleaned out the top order. 3 of the top 5 of England, was just amazing, and a fine performance of swing bowling with the white ball. Nobody seemed to be able to swing the ball as much as him. So a fine choice for your top 5. So Wasim Akram is your number 4. Moving on to my number 3. He's a South African, born in Phalaborwa in Transvaal. Dale Willem Steyn, born 27th of June 1983, played for South Africa from 2004 through to last year when he retired. The injuries got the better of Dale Steyn, and he was forced to give the game away. 93 tests, 439 wickets at 22.95, 125 ODIs, 196 wickets at 25.95, with an economy rate of 4.87. And in today's modern game, an ODI economy rate of
under 5
is pretty damn good in my eyes. He's also played 47 T20 internationals, 64 wickets at just 18.35. And again, his economy rate, 6.94 in T20s. Made his debut against England at Port Elizabeth in December 2004 and played his final test at the same ground against Sri Lanka in February last year. 2010, he had his best figures of 7 for 51 versus India at Nagpur. I point that out because it's Nagpur in India, not exactly the fast bowler's greatest.
No.
And he, of course, famously or infamously in South Africans' eyes, bowled the final over in the Cricket World Cup semi-final at Eden Park when
I was
his
going to mention that.
countryman Grant Elliott smashed him out of the ground to win the game for New Zealand. So he was just absolutely distraught after bowling that last ball. But man, what a fine bowler! He was a very smooth run up and delivery, and he was another bowler, a bit like Warne, probably not to the same extent. But if Dale Steyn was bowling, boy, I loved watching him bowl.
Yeah, he was an athlete, wasn't he? He was an athlete. Great player. So quick. It was probably the quickest on all of our lists. Maybe I've got one guy coming up next who may be able to rival him, but man, he was a quick bowler, Dale Steyn. Real scary. And I was going to say my favourite memory was when he was lying on his back at Eden Park after Grant Elliott smashed that ball. That's my favourite, as a Kiwi, of course. But no, great call, mate. Dale Steyn, great fast bowler. Okay, we'll get to my number.
Another fast bowler that wasn't excessively tall either. He was just under the 6 foot mark. I think he was about 5'11". So yeah, yet another quick bowler who could get the ball to rear at very sharp angles, but not being overly tall himself.
So if you're not a tallie, you can still be a fast bowler. Now, my number 2, another guy with Keith as his second name. Dennis Keith Lilly. 355 wickets at 23.92. He was the outstanding fast bowler of his generation. He was known for his fiery temperament, his never-say-die attitude, and his popularity with the fans. He never took a backward step. He had that long sort of hair. I love the way when he ran, and he just had the most beautiful approach to the wicket. I think the way that we can, perhaps the best compliment we can pay him is that Richard Hadley, who may be coming up, used to say that he modelled himself on Dennis Lilly's run and approach to the wicket. Not so much the action, but his approach to the wicket. He was just so athletic, and another guy that would bring people inside to watch the guy bowl. He was early on in his career. He was an extremely fast bowler, like 150 plus, close to 160 kilometres an hour. Very, very fast. But he had to sort of temper that when he had a massive stress fracture in his back, and he had to put himself on a strict fitness regime, which for the time was considered absolutely revolutionary. The stuff he did, hung himself upside down and did all sorts of stuff to try and fight his way back to full fitness. He eventually returned to Test cricket. People sort of said, nah, he's gonna be half the bowler he was, and he proved them all wrong. He was almost twice the bowler he was before. He couldn't bowl quite as fast, but he was just about as scary. Took 355 wickets. When he took those wickets, that was the record. And he was perhaps the most recognised of all Australia's sports stars in the 80s and in the 70s and 80s. Just the way his shirt used to flap, and just small things you remember about Dennis Lilly. Absolutely love the guy. Of course, the handlebar mo. Just love Dennis Lilly, and his little run-in with Javed Miandad and the aluminium bat, and just the guy's a bloody legend, mate. Dennis Lilly, my number.
Oh, absolutely, and one of my favourite Australian bowlers of all time, Dennis Lilly, and the shirt unbuttoned down to the belly button, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, came back after that serious back injury, and as we'll talk about with Mr. Hadley a little later on. His comeback after injury. I mean, Hadley modelled himself again on, the second part of Lilly's career when he shortened his run-up, paying the ultimate tribute to that. And yes, Lilly still managed to get the odd one through fairly quickly after his back operation, but yeah, not as consistently quick as you mentioned in that second spell of his career. Now, my number 2 is a man who probably scared a lot of batsmen absolutely shitless throughout his career. He played for the West Indies from 1998 through to the year 2000. Curtly Elcon Linwall Ambrose, born September
what a name.
1963. Classic West Indian name. Boy, I just absolutely loved watching Curtly Ambrose, and still today, I love watching YouTube clips of him just absolutely rip snorting balls through to the wicketkeeper off those very friendly local West Indian wickets. Played 98 tests, and in those 98 tests, 405 wickets at 20.99 with an economy rate of 2.3. In his 176 one-day internationals, 225 wickets at 24.12. We talked about an economy rate under 5 being good in one-day internationals. This boy had an economy rate of 3.48 in one-day internationals. Test debut versus Pakistan at Georgetown in April 1988. Played his last test versus England at the Oval in September 2000. 941 first-class wickets. And in 1992-93, in the deciding test of the test series against Australia in Perth, bowled a devastating spell, 32 deliveries, a spell of 7 wickets for 1 run. He finished with figures of 7 for 25, and him and Ian Bishop rolled the Australians for 119. Windies won by an innings and 25 runs to win the series 2-1. Just an unbelievable spell of bowling. And that was on the old Macca, of course, which back in the 90s and early 2000s, it was the favourite wicket
Rather
in
bouncy.
the world of fast bowlers, and Kirtley just absolutely destroyed the Australians. Another favourite moment of mine was the time that Dean Jones asked Kirtley to remove the white wristband.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
All it succeeded in doing was firing Kirtley up to take 5 for 32. And Mark Taylor said after the match he was absolutely horrified when Jones asked him to take the wristbands off, because it was the absolute worst thing that Jones could do. And in 1993, he took 6 for 24, bowling England all out for 46 at Queen's Park in Trinidad. So Kirtley Ambrose, my number 2. So there's our top 4s. I'm pretty sure I know who's going to be the number 1 for, well, I know who it is for me, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be your number 1 as well. So you kick it off, Aaron.
Yeah, mate. We couldn't go anywhere else, could we, really? Sir Richard John Hadlee. He was born on the 3rd of July, 1951. He's our greatest fast bowler. He's definitely our greatest cricketer of all time. He was appointed a MBE in 1980. He was knighted in 1990 prior to his final test. So he actually got to go out and had to put Sir Richard Hadlee up on the board. He was chosen in 2002 by Wisden as the 2nd greatest test bowler of all time. And who can argue? He's rated by many experts as the greatest exponent of bowling with the new ball. And he was the master of conventional swing. We'll say conventional swing as opposed to what Wasim Akram did. And he was the original sultan of swing, is what they used to call him. And 85-86, the beginning of a period where he developed from a very good bowler into something that was truly world class. And that New Zealand tour to Australia in 85-86 was where he really became a household name in both sides of the Tasman. Outstanding all-round performance, helped destroy the home team in the first test at Brisbane. Personal test best of 9 for 52, combined with 6 more wickets in the second innings, and we crushed them by an innings. He followed that up with 7 wickets in a loss in the second test and 11 wickets in a test victory in the third test, giving New Zealand our first series win on Australian soil, and a personal haul over 3 tests of 33 wickets, which is just
not
crazy. That's not too bad, is it? In the first test of the return series in New Zealand, he took his 300th test wicket by trapping Alan Border, LBW. We eventually won that as well, 2-1, by the way of a victory in the third test at Eden Park. We wouldn't have won any of those tests without him. He was just an absolute beast of a fast bowler. He's our Bradman, our Gretzky, our Pele. Quite simply, he's our greatest ever cricketer by a street. Sir Richard John Hadlee, he's my number 1.
Quite right. And of course, he's my number 1 as well. The master, taking 431 test wickets at just 22.3 and only 86 tests. just an incredible return. 115 ODIs, 158 ODI wickets at 21.6, and another unbelievable economy rate of 3.3 per over. Mind you, that was back in the days when scoring 300 was very rare, so the economy rates were a little lower those days before they are as they are now. Two test hundreds and 15 50s, so he wasn't that bad with the bat either, averaging 27.20. So he fitted into that all-rounder category perfectly. I always said if you had a better batting average than you did a bowling average, you were a world-class all-rounder. Made his debut versus Pakistan in February 1973, and as you mentioned, his last test as Sir Richard Hadlee against England in July 1990. He also had a successful career for Nottinghamshire in England in county cricket from 1978 to 1987, and twice in 1981 and 1984 got the double of 100 wickets and 1,000 runs, which is just an incredible effort in those county seasons. In tests, he took 10 wickets in a match 9 times and an incredible 5 wickets in an innings 36 times, which is they're just
stupid.
Staggering figures and never likely to be repeated by any bowler. Even the likes of Muralitha and Shane Warne can't come close to matching those figures. And of course, who could forget, he had a father, Walter Hadlee, who represented the New Zealand cricket team back in the 1940s, and of course 2 brothers who also represented New Zealand in Barry and Dale Hadlee, and played a lot of his early test cricket alongside brother Dale. Barry just playing a couple of ODIs early in the 70s. And but yeah, 3 brothers that have represented the same country is an effort in itself. But yeah, Sir Richard Hadlee, just an amazing icon of cricket. And of course, he's gone on to be a selector. And of course, over the last time, sadly, he's been suffering from health issues over the last few years. So hopefully he'll come right from those, the most recent being a spot of cancer. So I think he's turned the corner on that one, and will live on for hopefully a number of more years. But yeah, just a New Zealand cricket and sports icon, Sir Richard Hadlee. So, of course, I'm not sure if you mentioned the Wisden Cricket of the Year in 1982, along with many other accolades, of course.
You got any honourable mentions, mate?
Well, I did. I started writing a list of honourable mentions, and I just gave up. It was wasting too many pages of paper. I mean, you look at the great West Indian fast bowlers of Andy Roberts, Michael Holding, Joel Garner, Courtney Walsh. Who could forget him? There's been some great English bowlers: Jimmy Anderson, Fred Truman, Frank Tyson, of course, Bob Willis. The list goes on. Alan Donald, neither of us mentioned in our top 5s. He could have easily snuck into there. And of course, who could forget Fani de Villiers playing for South Africa as well? Yes, Fani de Villiers. On the subcontinent, you mentioned Wasim Akram. You touched on Waka Yunus as well. And of course, a host of Australian fast bowlers that never even got a mention as well. So yeah, just a lot of great bowling talent around the world.
Oh, there is, mate. I mean, a couple of names, Keppel Dev as well. There was Imran Khan and Ian Botham. Both of those guys, I mean, phenomenal bowlers, as well as being great all-rounders. I also used to love, even though he didn't take a lot of wickets, but I saw him play a couple of times, and he was perhaps the fastest I ever saw live. And this is when Marshall and all them were around. A guy called Patrick Patterson. I don't know whether you ever Patrick Patterson. My God, that guy was quick. I saw him at Eden Park. I just couldn't see the ball. I saw him bowl. I didn't see the. I just saw the wicketkeeper taking his gloves. I didn't see the ball at all. He was phenomenal. Of course, he was one that scared the bejesus out of Ken Rutherford, made him cry and want to come home on that, on that West Indian tour all those years ago. So I do love a really good fast bowler. So I had to mention Patrick Patterson. Of course, Michael Holding and Joel Garner were 2 of my other great favourite West Indian bowlers. Just honourable mentions. I put Matthias Muralitharan right at the top of it. Go back to Ken Rutherford as well when he chucked the ball back to him. That was I loved that moment when he picked up the ball after Matthias threw one down and he threw it back to him. I've got James Anderson and Stuart Broad on my list of dishonourable mentions just because you can't get in the top wicket takers by just playing 1,000 tests. Glenn McGrath, just because he's a dick. I mean, he was a great bowler. Pigeon had the stupidest nickname of all time. The guy was a great bowler. He was metronomic, but my God, he was a dick. And Shane Lee. Was it Shane Lee?
Shane Lee.
He was a real wanker too, wasn't he? Just your typical Aussie wanker. He just used to love. One good thing that guy did do though is he got the English journalist. What's his name? The English journalist, and they put him in the nets during a test.
Yes.
In Perth. The guy
Piers
that supports
Morgan.
Arsenal. Piers Morgan. And he bowled him a few
That was
balls
Brett Lee.
down. Brett Lee, yeah. Brett Lee. He was a bit of a dick as well. So I didn't. Brett Lee, Shane Lee, anyone called Lee. No, I don't have anything against people.
Quite right. I think one other honourable mention. This guy was around when I was growing up, so maybe a bit before your time, maybe not. It was the great Queensland slinger, Jeff Tomo Thompson. He was amazing to watch. He just absolutely dawdled up to the wicket. It was almost like he didn't really need to run up to the wicket because he just trotted up to the wicket and then launched his right arm back behind his backside and absolutely slung it down at 160 miles an hour. Was just an incredibly fast bowler. And I noticed you also missed out in your dishonourable mentions. Another good chucker, Shoaib Akhtar.
Absolutely. Shoaib, who was all sweat and hair gel, wasn't he? When he came running in, he was quite good to watch, just because he just looked so violent. Looked so violent in his action, didn't he? But no, some great bowlers there. That was a good list, mate. Thank you for that.
Yes, quite right. Well, on to the wee sermon from the mountaintop. We did.
Preach to me, brother. Preach to me.
We discussed it last week when we were talking about the interesting decisions that came out of the Crusaders Chiefs game down in Christchurch. But yeah, I'm going to talk about football, or not football, all sport using the technology. So here we go.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The jubilation at scoring a goal or getting a wicket or a try, or even if you've got somebody out in a bang play at first base, is now a thing of the past. As checking goal, decision pending are just a couple of new phrases that are now part of the sporting culture as technology takes over the decision making in sports across the spectrum. In the beginning, when the likes of cricket boarded in to check runouts and stumpings, I was all for it to ensure decisions were right. Then, as sporting bodies will tell you, that it has been brought in to get rid of the howler, a shocking decision by a referee or umpire that is quite clearly a wrong call in the heat of the moment, like Thierry Henry's handball against Ireland. But now that it has taken over many sports, I'm wondering if it's the right path to take. Rugby league has the bunker, rugby union the television match official, football has VAR, the video assistant referee, cricket the third umpire, and baseball has the video replay official. And many other sports have similar officials and groups to review decisions made on the field of play. With all this technology taking over, former Australian cricketer and now broadcaster Kerry O'Keefe believes that the theatre of sport has now gone. With all this technology, so players celebrate initially with their teammates, but then the scoreboard shows decision pending, or VAR review, or TMO, blah, blah, blah. And even then, there's no guarantee the video official will get it right. It seems from the view of the fan that once the on-field referee has made a decision, it's very unlikely it will be turned over by the video official because he doesn't want to be seen to be showing up his or her colleague. However, that all changed after that was pointed out. Now they are turning over decisions, but why should they? Why doesn't the man or woman in the middle look at the replay themselves on the sideline monitor? This is obviously not an option in sports like tennis, cricket, or baseball, but there just doesn't seem to be any consistency. And many present and former players are saying, get rid of the technology, until he can sort out laws like offsides, knock-ons, forward passes, etc., and just expect the odd wrong decision. On Sky Sport UK during the Premier League season, former Liverpool and England defender Jamie Carragher said he's now changed his mind on VAR. Over the last few months, there has been plenty of either terrible or curious decisions made by video umpires. As recently, a couple of weeks ago, there was Quinton Strange's non-knock-on, which led to a Crusaders try. In an A-League game between Phoenix and Adelaide earlier in the season, the on-field ref very hastily called a penalty when the ball appeared to hit Wellington defender Louis Fenton on the chest, and the video official unbelievably confirmed the call. It was then justified by refs boss Strebre Delovsky, who said Fenton's chest was unusually large. Really? Another was Liverpool forward Roberto Firmino being called offside against Aston Villa when the VAR Martin Atkinson said Firmino's armpit was offside ahead of the Villa defender Tyrone Mings' knee. Come on, armpit. We've seen plenty of howlers in other sports using the technology. Wallaby centre Serevi being penalised for an over-vigorous fend in a Rugby World Cup match. One-on-one strips by the Warriors against Canberra. And, of course, who could forget Nigel Long admitting there was something showing up on hotspot for an Australian batsman.
That's right.
But that could have been anything. Yes, it was
right.
Yes, it was something. It was the edge of the bloody bat. It's time the lawmakers made some of the current rules a little easier to interpret, like knock-ons, forward passes, one-on-one strips, offsides, etc. Here's one that will rule out the toenail or armpit offside. Change the rule to say there must be clear daylight between the striker and the defender to be judged offside, and give the advantage to the attacking player. Let's face it, spectators come to watch goals, tries, runs, etc., not highline defending, good bowling, or defensive infield shifts. Now, I know there is a lot riding on sports results these days, and yes, as I mentioned, we remember Henri's handball that knocked Ireland out of the 2010 World Cup. But enough is enough. It's time to put a halt to armpits being offside and chests being unusually large, and bring back the theatre of sport.
Hey, hang on. I'm just going upstairs for this one, mate. No, hang on. Just wait a second. No, wait, just wait. No, I'm just talking to someone. No, wait. Oh, no, it's just so stupid. You know, the thing is, unfortunately, when we brought this in, sort of, you know, we haven't changed the rules. We haven't moved with the times. We've got the same rules. We just thought, no, all we'll do is look at it and we'll be able to see what was wrong. We'll be able to correct it. But it's never that simple when you're going by the same rules on the field as you are up in the booth, you know. And then what do we rule on? You know, in rugby league, we can't rule on a forward pass. In rugby union, apparently we can. So what, is that a scientific thing? Or, and oh no, we're only bringing this out for the howler. So we have things like captain's challenge, or, you know, I'm going to challenge that. Well, look, you either have it or you don't have it. And if you have it, like you say, we've taken away so much emotion. The worst thing is the football for me. I mean, VAR, because scoring the goals, stopping, you know, that was the ultimate joyous moment. When they score a goal, they look across. If the flag isn't up and the referee is pointed to the middle, it's a goal, and nothing can take that away.
Yeah.
And now it just seems like anything can take it away. And an armpit, I've never seen a goal ever. Watched a shitload of football in my time. Have you ever seen a goal scored by an armpit ever?
No.
Have you?
No. Unfortunately, those are going to continue because referee's boss, who we were celebrating the other week, Pierluigi Collina, has come out and said there's going to be no change to the law. It's going to be staying as it is. So we're still going to see the toenail offsides and the armpit offsides.
But he is working for FIFA?
Yep, but every referees association around the world has been instructed they have to follow FIFA's lead. So Premier League can't make their own rules.
I'm actually all for that, because I think that's what the problem was with the Premier League, was that they were like, oh no, we can do this a bit better. We don't need to go to the sideline. We can do, you know, and in the end they didn't. They stuffed it up, and I think it works better. It actually worked really well in the last World Cup. the VAR. It didn't seem like there was a lot of controversy then. So if they go back to managing it how they did it then, maybe it can get better. But
so that instruction has
here,
also come out that the referees must use the sideline monitor. So basically, the bods at Stockley Park will let the referee know that there might be something they need to take another look at, rather than actually changing the decision.
And then at least you can blame the ref if you've got a problem with it, and you don't have. At least the ref can take responsibility for having made that decision.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll be an improvement. But I think we've got a long way to go.
Oh,
I think football especially. I think cricket. You know, we're 20 years down the track with cricket. You know, we've almost got it. You know, nearly as good as it could do. But football, oh my gosh, I think we've got a lot more pain to go for.
Long way to go. Well, that wraps up this week's edition of the Hot Air Sports Podcast. We look forward to bringing you another one next week. So it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from him. We'll see you next week. Good night.